Welcome to the Change Management module within the BECS Assure training program. The aim of this module is to reinforce the need for change management on all our projects, to explore what a change is, whether with very small changes we should be ignoring them or not, how we recognise when a change occurs, how we agree them with our clients, and why they are commercially important to us. So that by the end of this module you will understand why we need to manage change, recognise what a change is, how we should get them agreed with the client, and why change management is specifically relevant to the SCAPE BECS framework. So why do projects change? In my 30 years experience of the construction industry, almost every project that I have been involved in has undergone change of some form or other. Projects within the built environment almost always change, so change is inevitable. But why is that? Construction projects are not like working on a production line. Every project of ours is unique or is a prototype in some way or other. This may be because ground conditions may vary between projects. Other existing site conditions may vary, including planning constraints, topography, site access and logistics. And client requirements may vary between similar projects on a programme. Back to clients, they may change their minds. We are adopting a collaborative approach with clients, and ideally we want to be helping them to develop the projects from very early stages, when clients need to be able to swap around requirements and test assumptions. All these are changes that need to be managed. As projects evolve, our understanding of the issues and solutions develop. So the assumptions that perhaps we made at the early stages are either proved correct or incorrect. If they are incorrect, what replaces them? And how will that change the project? In the public sector, particularly SCAPE framework, client budget constraints may vary from financial year to financial year, or their spending priorities may just be adjusted. Either way, this may impose a change on the project as it responds to new financial constraints. And stuff happens. We have to be able to respond to that and help our clients. Remember, our clients may not be used to dealing with construction projects. Their world may be a production line, and therefore change may seem like a real threat to their business. But we are used to change, and we have the opportunity to help them and guide them through it. So why do we need change management? Because as we have just said, change will happen, and that represents a risk to us and to the client, and indeed to SCAPE. And we need to protect ourselves and themselves from that risk. Now, having robust change management processes which methodically record how the project has evolved through change will mitigate that risk. Change management is good practice across our businesses, and it is also what we said to SCAPE on how we will run our projects on the BECS framework. It promotes strong budget and programme control by ensuring that changes which impact cost and time are recorded so that we can update the programme and the cost plan. It ensures that there are no surprises, either to the client or to Perfect Circle, and there is a theme of this running through this presentation. It is rare for a client to welcome with open arms a bill for changes at the end of a job which were previously unknown. Similarly, within our business, taking a write-down or accepting a loss at the end of a project which had been predicting a profit does not normally go down well. And the double whammy of change management is that firstly, the management of our projects is improved. We get paid for the changes that we make, and we protect our profit. And secondly, our clients see that we are managing their projects effectively, and they get certainty of outcome in respect of time and cost. If we are going to manage change, we need to understand what a change is. Clearly, every project will be different and have different approaches, but the philosophy remains the same. So generally, anything that changes what you have to do, how long you have to do it for, who you plan to use to perform the task, your resources, any assumptions you have made, and changes to the quality criteria of the end product. Anything that affects any of these is probably a change. We need to remember that changes do not just increase our scope, they may decrease it, particularly if the client finds that they have a reduced budget. And if the client has reduced the scope, our fees may also be reduced. A client that has significantly cut a scope of services is not normally expecting to pay the full original fee. And if we have not captured that change and updated our spending forecast, we could be in for an unpleasant surprise. In certain instances, changes may have no effect. For example, if some equipment is moved on a floor plan before the design has been done and does not need you to redo anything, then it may not cost anything. But that change should be logged as a record of how the design has evolved. It may be that later it is found that the new position does not work, and the log of the previous change has therefore recorded the decision process behind that change and who issued the instruction. We should recognise that changes do not originate from just the client, but may be raised by any of the team. Essentially, it should be down to the party who is most affected by the potential change, and therefore who is best able to identify it. But all changes need to be agreed with the client and recorded. What we want to get to is at the end of the job, there are no surprises, either for the client or for us. Before looking at recording and agreeing changes, we need to consider whether a change can be too small. It is all too easy when projects are going at full tilt to be focused on the detail and not see the wider view, and certainly few of us, perhaps with the exception of my wife, are blessed with hindsight. So this example is giving you a bit of hindsight of looking back on a project and the changes that were made, and hopefully the lessons to be learnt. The example we are going to look at was a tender design project for Royal School of Military Engineering, RSME, at Colchester in support of a contractor, and we did it about 13 to 14 years ago. The total fee was £265,000 for an outline design, and I think that the design programme was around about 4 months. During that time, the contractor made a number of changes which led to £63,000 of additional fees, which represented a 24% increase on the original fee. But the important point, the important message to get across is looking at the size of the changes on the table. 85% of the number of changes were below £5,000 in value, and almost half of the number of changes were below £2,000 in value. The smallest one was below £500. So less than a day's work, say, for some of the team. And it was quite easy to perhaps let that pass. But if we had ignored the smallest claims, i.e. those under £2,000, we would have had to write off £13,000, or approximately 5% of the original fee, or somewhere quite close to the original profit level on the project. On its own, the £500 claim could have been ignored, but collectively, and only really with hindsight, are they clearly important. By recording all the changes, no matter how small, we had the information to make that decision. We may well have ignored the small claim, but the important element is that we were making an informed decision, and that is what change management allows you to do. Recognising a change is fundamental to the process, because if we are not sure when a change occurs, we can't begin the process and we can't begin to manage it. The other key point to remember is that recognising change is not just down to the project manager. Everyone in the team needs to be able to identify when a change happens. So everyone needs to understand what their scope is, when do the tasks need to be done by, what information do you need from others, and what budget do you have to work with? Maybe more specifically, how many hours does that equate to? And just to re-emphasise, everyone means all the team, the project manager, the design team, and your sub-consultants. So when you are asked to do a task, you need to be asking yourself, does this change what I have to do? When I need to deliver it? Are my assumptions still valid? Does this mean I need to do rework? Finally, remember that changes can increase or decrease your scope. So this module is not here to teach you how to use the NEC process, and is certainly not a detailed run through the clauses in the process, but really to make you aware of the change process within the SCAPE contracts and framework, which is NEC3 based. And typically, the change process will be as follows. The first step will be to raise an early warning notice, an EWN. The early warning notice needs to be raised as soon as you are aware of an issue. There is then a process to review the risks associated with the early warning notice, and if decisions made at the risk review meeting necessitate a change in the scope, then the client will issue an instruction. It's worth remembering that instructions may also be issued by the client with or without an early warning notice. The instruction from the client then goes through the compensation event process. Firstly, to agree that the instruction is a valid compensation event, and when it is agreed, the client will then request a quotation, which is prepared and reviewed again with the client before being agreed and incorporated into the contract through a contract amendment. Just note that within NEC there are time limits embedded in the process, typically 2 weeks, and these timescales are built to ensure that the compensation event process keeps moving. If you don't respond to within the time limits, you may lose the opportunity to make the claim. But the same goes for the client as well. They also need to work within the timescales. All of this is geared to ensure that there are no surprises at the end of the project. Changes are instructed, priced and agreed as the project progresses. We started by saying that change will occur, and therefore we need to be prepared for it. We don't need to just hold our head in our hands. Change management is important. Managing change is good practice. It demonstrates robust control of our projects in terms of time, cost and quality. As part of the BECS framework, we are all being measured against performance indicators, including predictability of time, predictability of cost. And failure to achieve these consistently will result in financial penalties being incurred by us. And effective change management will help us meet them. Conversely, effective change management will also significantly help us to achieve those performance indicators. Equally important is our need to protect our profit margins. We are all commercial organisations and we need to make a profit. The margins are generally slim, and particularly when we looked at the Royal School of Military Engineering example, ignoring the sub £2,000 claims would have wiped that original profit margin out. And whether this is they are time charge projects or lump sum projects, effective change management is essential to successfully managing all our projects. Change should not be seen as negative. On the flip side, change represents an opportunity for us to help and advise our clients and to grow our commissions if we manage them. So in summary, within the built environment that we are working in, we need to expect change and be able to recognise it. The key to this is to know your scope. Change management is good practice. It promotes budget and programme control. Under the NEC, and it is what we said we would do across the BECS framework, we need to agree changes as they happen to ensure that there are no surprises for our clients and for us. Remember that change creates uncertainty for our clients. They may be unused to that, we aren't, so we can help them and guide them through this process. And change gives us the opportunity to grow our scope, introduce new disciplines and cross-sell through our business.